Hey everybody, welcome to Breakfast All Day. Matt and Christy, Alonzo. I have not seen The Devil All the Time, but I plan to because I am a fan of Antonio Campos's earlier film After School, which I hope people go back and dig up. Anyway, they're going to tell you all about it.
This is a movie based on the novel of the same name by Donald Ray Pollock, who actually also narrates the movie. And it is about a couple of different families that are loosely connected and then have more profound connections in one town called Knockemstiff, Ohio, which is a real place.
I wondered about that. I was going to look it up.
It is. And then the other one is
Coal Creek, West Virginia.
Yeah, Coal Creek, West Virginia. And we start out meeting Bill Skarsgård's character, Willard, who was a Marine in the Solomon Islands. And he's had, he's still clearly suffering from some level of PTSD. He meets the woman that is going to be his wife in a cafe, and she has a baby that grows up to be Tom Holland. And Tom Holland learns a lot about biding his time and fighting at the right moments and whether or not there's any power in prayer. Meanwhile, you have some, since this is kind of the 50s and then early 60s, you've got these like weird revival movements and these preachers that no one should trust. And this feels like a lot like if Cormac McCarthy was writing like Southern Gothic. And there's, it's got a really interesting take. I actually really like this. Like, this movie's grim as fuck. And it's not quite as bleak as some of other, say, Cormac McCarthy's work. But boy, it's certainly in the same neighborhood. It's maybe a little bit more hopeful. I like everybody in this. This is a movie that weaves in and around stories and jumps back and forth in time. And characters don't really come together till the end, and that's kind of okay. It is fairly episodic in nature. This would be one of those movies that, like, if it was coming on Netflix, is kind of the wrong place for this to show, because this would be like the perfect movie that would show on something like a TBS or a TNT, and you would catch it like 20 minutes in and like, oh, all right. And something that you've seen a dozen times before, and you can kind of come in anywhere because it's so episodic in nature.
Well, there's like a passel of A-listers in this movie, right?
It's an incredible cast.
Yeah, incredible cast. And I think it's really well directed. I liked this a lot.
Yeah, it's like Robert Pattinson, Tom Holland, Sebastian Stan, Jason Clarke, Mia Wasikowska, Riley Keough, Bill Skarsgård. It's nuts. It's a whole bunch
Haley Bennett.
It's a whole bunch of British and Australian people doing Southern accents. We got to talk about Robert Pattinson's accent, because
I think Pattinson's amazing in this.
He is, but did you read the story about how he famously refused to work with a dialect coach before this movie began shooting, and he just showed up saying, "I've got a voice planned. I've got a plan."
No.
And so he's doing this kind of thin, kind of reedy, soft, thin, kind of Southern twang that sometimes becomes Elvis. Like, it's like all over the place, but that actually makes sense for who he is, because he's this traveling bullshit. Well, he's like this traveling bullshit artist, right? So he's.
I mean, they all are, right?
Right. But he goes from town to town, and he puts on airs. He has a very fancy car, and he only wears button-down shirts with ruffles on them. And, he insists that when he comes to the new town that everyone in the parish has got to come bring him a dish. Yeah, and they all cook for him, and he samples all their food. And so I think
what he's really rude about it.
What he does here makes absolute sense, right? So this is really powerfully acted, and it's edited beautifully, because as you mentioned, Matt, it does intertwine three different stories, and it jumps back and forth in time from actually three different eras, because it's like right at the end of World War II, and then it's also like the mid 50s, and then it's like early to mid 60s. It ends in like 65, right. But it's in no way chronological, and it's totally seamless, and you always know where you are and when you are, and the tension builds throughout those three eras. It's kind of a fascinating exploration of intergenerational violence and the need for revenge and the sins of the father being visited upon the son. But I'm a little unclear, and I want to work through this with you, because I don't know whether what he's trying to say is you are doomed to follow in your parents' footsteps, or is it about the capricious nature of fame? Because something kind of important happens early on in the film in the 40s, where Riley Keough and Haley Bennett are waitresses together in the same diner. And Bill Skarsgård and Jason Clarke are both customers. Jason Clarke is sitting at the counter, but he gives up his seat. He gives up his seat to Bill Skarsgård, and when he walks in
who's in uniform,
he's like, "Here, thank you for your service. Here you go." And so Jason Clarke goes and sits on the side by the front door, and Bill Skarsgård gets that seat at the counter. So Haley Bennett becomes Bill Skarsgård waitress, and Riley Keough becomes Jason Clarke's waitress, and that's how they both end up building lives together. Now, is this movie about how the universe is random and you sit in a different chair and your whole path becomes different? Or is it about how you're doomed and your fate is set, and no matter who you are, no matter what future you might want to build for yourself, if you are poor and come from a family of violence and illness and death, you're just screwed? What do you think?
Those are two contradictory ideas.
Aren't they, though?
Yeah, I actually think my takeaway from this film was, for as much as this movie happens outdoors, it's really claustrophobic.
Cars and shacks.
No, I'm more just like you can't escape from this life, right? Unless you like get the fuck out. Like, and it's not enough to go like, a few miles away. Like, you got to really get way, way, way out. And it's not until I think, you get a glimpse of the future that I think kind of plays into that. I think it's more about just like the randomness and quirks of fate that, it's kind of like, oh, you were there at that time? I was there at that time. And I think it's more, not so much trap, but just like there's a series of coincidences coupled with kind of this awfulness of, like, it's almost like awful coincidence, right? But then coupled with like the abuses of faith and how people put their faith in the wrong things. And, but
it's
you can
definitely
still
an indictment of religion, for sure.
Well, it absolutely is. And you can
believing means nothing.
Right. And if anything, like, you got to move past some of the things you've been taught if you've been taught the wrong things.
It's a very pessimistic film. I would say it's nihilistic, but it's not. It's beyond that. It's fatalistic, because no matter who you are, you can be devout, you can serve your country, you can be a criminal, you can be a serial killer. Doesn't matter. It does not matter what choices you make in life, because bad shit's coming for you. That's the moral of the story here. It's a very fatalistic film in that regard. And that's the randomness of fate element, I think, that is at play here. One of the through lines. It doesn't matter what you choose to do. You can choose to be a good person. Pious people have awful things happen to them here. It doesn't matter.
That's true. That's true. No, I mean, don't get me wrong. I brought up Cormac McCarthy. This movie's grim as fuck.
It is. But very well made. Lal Crawley shot it, who also shot like Vox Lux and 45 Years.
Yeah. It's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous.
And everyone's accents are good. Rich sense of place. It does kind of dabble a bit in like white trash poverty porn. It does kind of wallow a bit in like the awfulness of these small town Southern lives.
Yeah.
Like Southern Ohio and Western West Virginia.
Yeah. The other thing too is that the Pollock as a narrator, when I first started hearing him, made me think of Ray McKinnon, who's the guy, the bona fide suitor from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I was convinced that was who was narrating.
I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah. But then I looked it up, and it was the writer of the novel.
It's
so
very
you get the
long.
author narrating. It's just like A Christmas Story then.
Oh,
yes.
It's very long. It's like 2 hours and 15 minutes long. I watched it in 2 hours and 18 minutes long. I watched it in 2 pieces. I really like Tom Holland in this. It's an incredibly different role for Tom Holland. It is as far away from Peter Parker as you could possibly ever imagine.
Yeah, I also really like Sebastian Stan in this. Like I saw Sebastian Stan, you know, partly because he's looking a little bit chunkier, and I thought, who was it that just we watched his last movie? I gotta look him up. He's in FX.
Sounds like
remember FX?
Brian Brown?
No, the other one.
Oh, Brian Dennehy.
Yeah, like he makes me think a little bit of Dennehy in this for whatever reason.
That's fine. Anyway, we should wrap. I'm saying 8. You know, I had a lower number before, but talking to you about this made me like this more, so I'm saying 8.
What did I say? 8?
You said 8.5.
8.5. There you go.
Okay. So 8.3 is our number. It's an investment in time and emotion. It's a lot.
Yeah, but it's good. It's worth it.
It is.
Totally worth
it. Sounds like it. All right.
Don't cancel Netflix.
Please, no. Thanks for watching. Like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us at BeFastAllDay on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. It's been lovely spending time with you. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.